meet. So we are being recorded, and we do have a packed agenda this afternoon, including a number of applicants for some vacant seats, as well as a presentation from the Burns Institute. So let me start by asking if anyone has announcements.
Hello, I have one. I'm Gigi Crowder. I'm the Executive Director for NAMI. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're pushing forth a campaign to make Contra Costa County a mental health friendly county. And so anyone interested in being a participant for your agency or any connection to mental health, you can get one of our flyers. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I see you're wearing a mental health awareness. We have a slightly different one that has a Black ribbon because of the disparities that we experience, and it is a social justice issue. But you would sign in the middle, as Ellen will do, and then she'll have all her staff from the Public Defender's Office sign. And then there's commitments on the back around how we can be more mental health friendly. Thank you for allowing me this time to share that.
Thank you, Gigi. On mute. If there are no other announcements.
Well, I saw Patrice's hand.
Oh, there she is. Sorry, Patrice. Go for it.
Oops. Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Thanks, Ellen, for recognizing me. I'm really excited to share that the Office of Reentry and Justice here at the Probation Department is currently hiring for a project coordinator to help us shape and implement our new restorative justice initiative. This is an initiative that we graciously received Measure X funding for. And so we have a very tight deadline to receive applications. They're due on March 11th. I can't remember the exact time. Oh, before 11:59 p.m., I believe. This is a 3-year term project coordinator position. And so we are expecting a really seasoned professional to come on board, help us shape our RJ work, not only within this within the department, but also to partner with other county partners as well, community-based partners as well, as we look to figure out ways to really help support across the board in adoption and embracing restorative justice principles and practices. So please be sure to, we'll drop in the chat a link to the job description. Please be sure to share it among your networks. We really would like to see some great quality candidates come through. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrice. Anybody else for announcements? These hands are hard to see on Zoom, so I don't want to miss anyone.
Gigi Crowder has her hand up.
Excellent. Well, we will move on and to roll call. And Nicole, would you mind doing the roll call for us this afternoon?
Sorry, Ellen, I didn't know if you heard me. Gigi had her hand up.
Oh, I think Gigi already didn't announce.
Oh,
I think
she did. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thank you though. Thanks.
Okay, let's do roll call. Let's see here. Matt.
Here.
Melissa.
Here.
Isa.
Here.
Ellen.
Here.
DA Becton. Let's see here on. See Louis, Chief Louis. Lynn.
Here.
Lashante. Gilbert.
Here.
Tamisha.
Present.
Jeff.
Here.
Michael. Let's see Michael. Shayla.
Here.
Stephanie. Don't see Stephanie on. Ronell.
Here.
And Cheryl.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There you go. That's everyone.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. And so at this time, we're going to take public comment on any item under the jurisdiction of the Racial Justice Oversight Body that is not on the agenda today. Again, this is for items that are not on today's agenda. If you can please raise your hand, we will call on you. And if everyone can try to mute, I think I'm hearing a little bit of background noise. All right, so I'm not seeing any public comment. We're going to move on to the approval of the record of action from our last quarterly meeting, and that was held on February 3rd of 2022. If you look at attachment 1, pages 4 through 6, you can review the record of action. Do any members have comment on the record of action from our last quarterly meeting? Not seeing any hands. Is there
I'll
any?
move to approve the record of action, Ellen.
Thank you, Isa. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff. And Nicole, if you wouldn't mind taking the vote.
Did we open it up for public comment yet?
Oh, thank you for the reminder. Any public comment on the record of action from the February 3rd quarterly meeting of the Racial Justice Oversight Body? Scrolling for hands, I'm not seeing anyone. Last call. All right, so if we could take the vote.
Melissa?
Aye.
Isa?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
DA Becton?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Gilbert?
Aye.
Tamisha?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Shayla?
Abstain.
Ronell?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much, Nicole. At this point, we're going to discuss applications for 2 vacant community-based representative seats. And I think I'll pass it. Christopher, were you going to comment on this?
Actually, if I can, Ellen, I can give some
Okay.
context and a little bit of guidance and leave it to the body to decide how you want to move forward with the process. So during, I believe in our last quarterly meeting, we did hear from all of you that you wanted to have a full-scale recruitment process to fill the 2 vacant seats. We took that information back to the PPC during their February 28th meeting, where we also included this with our job update. And so PPC members actually wanted to get some feedback from the full body on applicants that would potentially fill any of the 2 seats. So this is a new process for this body. So what we have included in the agenda are the applications for those that we've received so far that made it in through the April 28th deadline. And so what we can do at this point is you all can decide how you would like to move through the process and discuss, and then ultimately make a motion to then recommend which applicants you would like to see move forward to go back to the PPC for formal interviews as they'll make the determination as to who will fill those 2 seats. So with that, I also like to mention that there were 2 applicants who recently withdrew their application, but that was done prior or following the posting of the agenda. That would be Alex Laffridge, I believe I'm saying the last name correctly, and Carrie Roberts.
And Patrice, I just received another withdrawal.
Okay, and who's that person?
Bessie Scoggins, probably not pronounced.
So I'll repeat. Okay, so we'll repeat that again. We got Alex Laffridge, which is on page 19 of your agenda. Carrie Roberts, which is page 56 of your agenda. And then the last who just came in is who again, Nicole?
Bessie on page 83.
Thank you so much, Patrice. So it appears with 3 having withdrawn their applications, we have about 12 applicants. Is that correct, Nicole?
Yes, 12 applicants.
Oh, one more thing too, Ellen, if I can mention, an invitation did go out to all of the applicants to attend today's meeting. So I know quite a few of them are here today. But again, today, this is not to have any formal interviews. They are present to answer any questions you might have of them as you're considering their applications.
Thank you so much, Patrice. So I'll open it up to the membership right now to propose. As a newer chair, I don't think I was here when members previously joined. So if there are process suggestions about how it might make sense to hear from folks that took their time to be here today and review the applications and discuss, I'll open that to the members of the RJOB. Any thoughts? Oh, Jeff, I can see your hand up.
Thanks, Ellen. I think this is new for all of us. And Patrice, I think you were kind of telling us that at least our involvement in this section of it. So could I be reminded, I know we're all absorbing the info, how many persons are we to be recommending to PPC for 2 of the group of 12 that we currently have? I know that we have people's information, of course, that was written and we had the chance to view. I wonder if there's sort of maybe a very brief kind of introductory statement about kind of, not to put people on the spot, but I would be interested just in people's own voices, if they're willing to talk a little bit about what led them to apply.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. That makes sense to me as well. Isa?
And I know we're filling 2 seats, very specifically a youth seat and a CBO/faith-based seat. But I don't know, and Patrice, maybe you had better understanding, are we only to recommend the 2 that we want to the PPC, or are we to recommend any of those who we feel would be qualified and then have the PPC ultimately interview and make the determination? Because in my very cursory overview of the applicants, I did find a few that I didn't think were eligible for either of those seats. Not to say that they wouldn't be great candidates going forward, but I just don't know that they met the eligibility of either a youth seat or a community-based organization/faith-based seat.
So what I can say that from what I can recall from the PPC meeting, there was not a whole lot of direction with regards to whether or not our job members would actually be recommending 2 applicants specifically to fill those seats, or whether they just want to receive your feedback and ultimately they would make the determination. Now, see, Jill has her hand up, so you can correct me if I've misunderstood the direction.
Yeah, so normally when a subcommittee of the Board of Supervisors is presented with a situation like this where they're making decisions, usually the recommendation comes from that recommending body, which is the RJOB, I believe in this case, that you all are to vet and determine which you feel are the 2 best members to fit those 2 seats. And then when this does go to the PPC, of course, all the applicants would be included, usually in a spreadsheet form, and then it would be noted which ones withdrew. And then that way they could, if they chose to, ask questions of anybody who attends the PPC. But I think they do believe that this is the vetting process and looking for a recommendation from the RJOB.
Thank you, Jill. That's very helpful. So it sounds like a review, a discussion analysis, as Isa pointed out, of which applicants may qualify for which of our 2 vacant seats, and then ultimately a vote from this body regarding our recommendation to the public protection committee about who will ultimately then move that forward in terms of who would fill these vacancies. So can I ask, Nicole, do you know how many of the 12 remaining applicants are currently here on this Zoom today? I can see several names, but
all of them are here except for 2.
Wonderful.
One that's not here is Carlos Fernandez and Yvette Varis.
Okay.
I should say that Aria Capelli, she's a high school student and she's not able to join until 3 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's helpful. So in terms of taking comment from those who are interested in joining, I think what would be helpful is for you to briefly, I can call out names based on the order that folks, no special order of preference, but the order of applications in the agenda packet today. If each applicant could spend two minutes or so letting us know which seat you believe you qualify for as part of the racial justice oversight body. And again, it's really exciting to see so many applicants. Often we are trying to recruit and there are more seats than applicants. So this is wonderful, but we're constrained by the sort of designation of each of these seats. And the first seat that we're being asked to fill is seat number 8, which is a faith-based, for a representative from a faith-based organization. And the second is seat 9, and this is on the front page of the agenda packet, and that is a representative who is either a school-aged young person or from a community-based organization providing services to school-aged youth. So for each applicant, after I call your name, if you don't mind introducing yourself and then letting us know which seat you believe you qualify for. Isa?
Madam Chair, if I might, I know that the Juvenile Justice Commission is also actively recruiting. So since we are only filling the 2 relatively limited scope seats at this point in time, I would encourage any of these candidates, because in looking over their applications, they all seem really well suited for consideration with the commission as well. So I would just encourage the candidates to consider, if not selected for this, or if selected for this, to also consider applying for the Juvenile Justice Commission as well.
That's a really great point. And I'm sure somebody will put a link in the chat at some point so that folks know where to go, but there are lots of active groups and commissions across the county. So definitely keep that in mind. Does anybody from our job, any other member have a question or a comment about process before we embark on hearing from the candidates that are here, from the applicants?
I have a question, Ellen.
Yes, ma'am.
It's Tamisha. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
So I heard that Betsy Scoggins withdrew her application. Betsy Scoggins is actually a pastor of a church in Antioch. And so I'm just wondering, when we say faith-based community, that's really broad to me. Any one of the applicants can fit into that if they belong to a congregation. Am I wrong about that?
So I don't know if Patrice or Nicole or anyone has, background on the original kind of drafting intent. What I see on the agenda is that it's a representative from a faith-based organization. So I would believe that the organization would send this person kind of as their representative rather than just somebody who happens to attend some sort of faith community. But I'm happy happy to stand corrected if there's more information from folks that were kind of around in the earlier iteration. I see, sounds like
just drawn right from the bylaws, but I don't know what the history of the bylaws are. So Jill probably has more background on why that became part of the composition of the body.
Just asking because, church are actual institutions. So I just wanted to again lift up that without a lot more,
Tanisha, we couldn't hear your last two sentences. You're going in and out a little. Can you state maybe your last two sentences again?
Just saying that churches are faith-based organizations. They are 501c3 institutions, which again, without a lot more specific, any one of these individuals could be considered a part of a faith-based organization. Just wanted to lift that up.
Understood. Jill?
As I was there through all the discussions in PPC when they were establishing these seats and asking for these to be asked, the representative from a faith-based organization would be somebody who is actually part of the church leadership, or not just a congregant, not just somebody who attends, but somebody who represents the leadership because of the work that many faith organizations do in the community. So it wouldn't just be if somebody attends church, it would be somebody who actually has authority to represent that institution.
Thank you, Jill. All right, so without anyone else interested in discussion, we can start. I heard that Carlos Fernandez, who's the first individual in the packet, was not able to join us today. Is Carlos here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you are here. Oh, great. Carlos, if you are willing to say a few words just about kind of your background, qualifications, interest in joining the Racial Justice Oversight Body, and also, oops, if you don't mind muting, that would be great. And also which seat you believe you're qualified for on this body.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. So I'm Carlos Fernandez, 23 years old, raised in Richmond, and I spent my teenage years inside of juvenile hall. Grew up in the rough part of Richmond, and since I've been out, 2017, I've been doing community work and working with a lot of young people, working in the school districts, working with organizations, nonprofit organizations here in Richmond, in Contra Costa County, starting to do some work in Antioch, trying to reach the youth out there. Probably on my way, later today, I'm on my way to go meet up with some youth to try to just, tell them what somebody should have told me a long time ago when I was 13. Also, I had a few units in Contra Costa College. So that's my background. I think I had a youth seat available. So that's what I was looking to apply for. And don't know what, any other questions?
Thank you so much for joining us. I don't specifically have any questions. I heard you say you believe you're eligible for the youth seat in on the Racial Justice Oversight Body. And oh, it looks like Jeff has some questions. You're on mute.
Thanks, Ellen. I thought just for process asking everybody, because I know part of historically one of the issues has been availability, so that everyone be able to make at least the quarterly meetings, and knowing that one of the commitments also is that we have the subcommittee meetings and those being monthly. So whether that's a realistic commitment for everybody, maybe just to, and also if people have an interest in one of those subcommittees, it's not a requirement, but maybe kind of how you'd fit into the ongoing work. But that was the only other thought that I had before.
What time are the meetings? I've been in a few meetings, but I've been in a lot of meetings. I'm also in the JJCC Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council. So what time are these meetings?
So generally we've been meeting quarterly, and the meetings are from about 1 to 4 in the afternoon on a Thursday every 3 months. There are also a variety of committee meetings, which are generally held, I believe, during the day in the afternoon on a monthly basis. And most members are also members of one of the subcommittees. So those are generally held, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but on a weekday in the afternoon.
Yeah,
Okay, I heard Thursday 1 to 4. That works with me.
Yeah, if I may, really quickly, Ellen, just so everyone knows, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar, but the Our Job subcommittees are community engagement and funding, data, and diversion. All of them meet on Thursdays. They just meet at different times in a different Thursday of the month. So the Community Engagement and Funding Subcommittee meets the second Thursday of every month from 3 to 4:30. The Diversion Subcommittee meets the third Thursday of every month from 1 to 3. And the Data Subcommittee meets every fourth Thursday from 3 to 5.
Thank you for that clarification, Chris. Other questions from, oh, I see Cheryl has a question.
Actually, not really a question, but another clarification, because it's not that, and I think that this is along with Christopher's point, is that we're required to be on a subcommittee. It's not an if or what do you call this, option. That's committing to the oversight body is also committing to being on one of the subcommittees. So, and I think that that's why we are at the point we are today in choosing new members, is making sure that, I think we ought to say that before we get into it, so everybody understands the commitment that they're making. So Ms. Ellen, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you for, that's such an important point, Cheryl. And so for those who have applied, the commitment we're asking for is the quarterly meeting, which again is on Thursdays and is about 3 hours long generally, and that each of you also join one of the 3 subcommittees that Christopher mentioned: community engagement and funding, data, or diversion. And those meetings are also 2 to 3 hours long and are once a month. And that is a requirement, as Cheryl rightly pointed out. So there is certainly some time investment that we would be requiring, and some consistency that we would like in order to really move this important work forward. Thanks for that, Cheryl. Anybody else with questions for Carlos before I move on? All right, I am not seeing any hands. So the next application I have is Tavon Payne.
Nicely done.
Oh.
Nicely done.
Oh, I got it right. Okay.
Yes,
welcome, Tavon. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to briefly address your interest in being on the Our Job and what seat you believe you would qualify for and your qualifications?
Well, by process of elimination, I am not representing a church, so that leaves that one out. So I'm not real clear on the other one, but I submitted my application because I have actually personally watched the juveniles that are, racially disparate, basically, and not given the things that they need to be given. And from that is why I retired from juvenile hall. So I personally worked with, probation. And it's just always been something that has meant a lot to me. And I think that I have a lot of input and a lot of a different aspect and look into what actually goes on that I can share with the full committee. And so that is why I have submitted my application.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from any members of the body? I see Christopher's hand up.
Thank you. Just another point to make in light of the information we just received. So, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, in addition to the JJCC potentially being an option or a landing space for folks who may not end up, you know, filling either of these particular seats, I believe that toward the end of this year, there will be a lot of vacancies, a lot of terms will expire. And so just wanted to make sure that folks stay connected, stay engaged, because there should be several opportunities within the next several months for you to get involved, even if either of these two seats doesn't exactly work out.
Thanks, Christopher. Other questions for Tavon? Not seeing anyone. Okay, thank you for your work at Juvenile Hall, Tavon, and for being here this afternoon.
Can I stay on, or is that required, or am I not supposed to?
You're absolutely welcome to stay on. It's an open public meeting, and we'll be discussing the applications, I think, after we hear from everyone who is an applicant.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. And next we have Deborah Hoffman-Wade. Is Deborah here?
Unmute myself. Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for joining us, Deborah.
You're welcome. I'm applying for the faith-based seat number 8. I am on the board of directors for Temple Beth Abraham and am a Mizrahi Jew. So there are 4 types of Jews in the world. There is Ethiopian, which are mostly representative of African-American and African communities. Most people recognize Ashkenazi, which is the Germanic and the European. And there is Sephardic, which is the Spanish and Portuguese, and speak a language all to themselves. And then my community, my dad was an Egyptian and Lebanese Jew, an Arabic Jew. And my mother is English and Scottish. So I applied for this with the representation from my community. I am a conservative Jew, which means that I am not politically conservative in any way, but it is a liturgical explanation of a step down from Orthodox, so, which is a really bad way to explain it anyway. I am a retired social worker. I worked 99% of my career with incest and sexual assault survivors, domestic abuse, as both a counselor and an administrator for a nonprofit organization. I have been married for 34 years. I'm also a lesbian in an interracial and interreligious relationship, in that my spouse is Blackfeet, Native American, and African American. And so I have spent 34 years of my life dealing with white privilege and recognizing my own, and being a representative for my community. And that's why I applied for this, so.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone from the RJOP who would like to ask a follow-up question
And I'm completely available because I'm 69 and retired. Yay!
Congratulations on being retired.
Thank you. So I spend my life quilting is what I do.
Excellent. I don't think we have a lot of quilters amongst our ranks. Did anyone have a follow-up question for Deborah?
And a warrior say.
Maybe I could just ask, I know I didn't do my raise hand feature, sorry. But just we were asking related to faith-based organization representatives that I think you had mentioned that you had been indicated as representative from your congregation. They had basically delegated you or chosen you as that to be that representative?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm on their board of directors, and I've been on the board of directors for 4 years.
Thank you.
And I have like a 2 more year commitment for that. And I promised my spouse I wouldn't become president.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Anyone
You're welcome.
else? All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you so much, Deborah.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Our next applicant is Yanni Garcia. Yanni, I think I saw you on the Zoom this afternoon.
Hello.
Hi.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and address us in terms of what seat you're applying for, which seat or seats you believe you qualify for, and a little bit about your interest in being on the Racial Justice Oversight Body, and of course your availability to commit in terms of the time commitment it would require.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much for allowing me the time. Before applying to the board, I did look at your past meetings and the dates that you all met and the subcommittees. So that was important for me because I do a lot of other things outside, and the commitment part is important to me. When I go into something, I want to go all in and be available for it. And so I'm definitely available for this. Thursday works best actually for me. A little bit about myself. I have 2 roles right now. I work at the Latina Center. Previously, years ago, I was a program coordinator for the Young Latina Future Leaders program that served middle school students here in Richmond at Lavanya Dijon and Helms Middle School. The youth is where my heart is because I myself was a troubled youth, and being undocumented, growing up in the city of Richmond with very little resources back when I was in high school. I saw a lot of my friends end up in juvenile, in the justice system with little to no resources, in families that were mixed status, where parents were undocumented and they weren't able to come see their children at juvenile hall or not able to access resources. And throughout my work in the community now, also working with the Contra Costa Youth Services Bureau, which serves multiple families in our county, East County and West County. There is definitely a need for us to be hands-on with how the system has, and the data has shown, has disproportionate, and it's not a just system for our Black and Brown folks. I believe that I'm suited for this position because I bring a different perspective. I'm not as knowledgeable or have a special degree like a lot of folks, but I like to learn, and I bring in the voices of many people in our community that haven't been heard, that haven't had a chance to decide themselves what a future in a world where they have their quality of life looks like. We don't get as involved sometimes, specifically with the undocumented community, which is the community that I work for the most. There's no spaces where they can come and voice their concerns because they don't believe in systems that are in place now. And so it was important for me to apply to this board because as we're seeing things change and shift and pivot because things haven't worked, I want to make sure that our Latino community is represented in spaces like this. I had some time to look at your previous meetings and the work that everyone's doing. And I think one of the things I pride myself in is building bridges with different opinions and diverse thoughts. But that's the beauty of it, you know, that we all can bring something very special and important to collaborate and work together to make those changes. You know, no one has the answers, but we can all work together to get those. And so I'm really honored, even if you didn't pick me, to still work in this space and be able to really do something bigger, not just in my city, but on a county level, because our Latino population is suffering a lot of disparities within the justice system. And if I'm able to be there with you all and work together, the perspective that I will bring would be unique. Having grown up in the city of Richmond, going through all the schools, I've never ended up in the justice system, but I've been very close when I was young, and it was different dynamics and support system that have gotten me now to where I am. I also have a 14-year-old daughter. Just the other day, picking her up after school, I witnessed a fight with babies. I call them babies, 13, 12, 14-year-olds, just fist fighting. And it really hurt my heart. I had to stop the fight because as Mama Bear, I went into like, stop it. But I thought about after, what are these kids going through? Why are our babies so lost? What is happening in our house, you know, in our homes, what is the support that's needed? And so being able to like talk to different community folks and members of, you know, of our community, mothers and fathers throughout the work that I do at both agencies, I think it would be beneficial to hear those voices and bring them here. So that was the main reason why I applied. And, you know, having some experience, I'm the chair to the Community Police Review Commission for the City of Richmond since 2014. We do oversight of the police department here in Richmond. And my background is in that, and it's in oversight and making sure that we're making recommendations to build those bridges between our community and the justice system where we haven't been able to do in the past. So that's just a little bit about why I'm here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yanni. Does anyone have a follow-up question for Yanni? I don't see any hands. I have just one follow-up question for you. So your application is as someone who works with a CBO or a community-based org that provides services to school-aged youth. Is that right? Okay. And is it the Latina Center?
So I work with two organizations, but the Latina Center program, well, one youth program specifically for young ladies in middle schools. And then also working with the Contra Costa Youth Services Bureau, we have kinship, and we're doing some work actually with the county into being able to work with probation officers because of a lot of our are unfortunately falling into the system, and we need to support their families and also these youth. So yeah, both organizations, I feel, do the type of work that I would fit in those chairs. Yeah.
Thank you. Great. And are there any questions for this applicant? Not seeing anyone else. All right. Thank you so much. And we are going to move on to the next applicant, Gigi Crowder. Welcome, Gigi.
Thanks for having me. I am committed to improving health outcomes for individuals that live with mental health issues, whether it be trauma or diagnosis. And so I spent the last 25 years doing work in the mental health field, and I found that it was pretty obvious that most of the individuals that are incarcerated had unaddressed mental health. And we use a trauma-informed approach more and more now, but we don't look at healing, shifting from trauma-informed to healing-centered engagement. And so I serve as an elder in my faith community, and I actually begged my pastor to apply, and he said he wouldn't be able to make the commitment. And I said, well, I should probably just go on and do it myself, because I do consider myself to be a racial justice advocate. And so we know that when we get calls here at NAMI Contra Costa County, where I'm the executive director, a large number of those individuals never had an opportunity to get treatment for their mental illness. We know there's racial disparities. They're actually glaring in this county with the bulk of the individuals who are incarcerated for living with a mental illness coming from my community. And so I felt like there's opportunities for us to utilize some of the strategies that have been successful in other areas of the country, as well as we have a very progressive DA that's now doing some work around reducing the disparities for juveniles. But I'd like to see that happen across the board for all ages. I think that we're in a unique time now where in Contra Costa County, we shouldn't have individuals who make up less than 10% of the population take up 40 to 50% of the criminal justice system, whether it's in mental health or not. So I've worked with some of the individuals on this committee, and I feel like rather than have them continue doing the heavy lifting, they need someone from my background who has twin sons who I never thought would ever have to have contact with law enforcement, yet I found myself picking them up from Antioch Police Department after giving them permission to go to a park and listen to a Kanye West album. They were picked up for a curfew violation. So that speaks to the racial profiling, the disparity that exists for particular communities. And I would like to address that. I also have a desire to focus on younger individuals. So I'm not a youth myself. I could get discounts at Ross on Tuesdays. But we at NAMI have hired young people because I'm a first do no harm approach to it. And so I make space for the voice that's needed most. But if that voice isn't there, I'll step in, listen to their concerns. We need to create safe spaces for them to participate. But if the space isn't safe, if they find a trusted adult, which I consider myself, I'll fill that spot. But I think it's most important to have someone representative of the individuals who are most harmed. And for me in this county, those most harmed are people from my community who should never have contact with law enforcement, who get their spirits broken. And so we do a lot of work in faith communities. I have training called I'm a Winner, and we shore up individuals and try and do the work that breaks the school to prison pipeline. So a large part of my life and my career has been devoted toward keeping people out of jail. I don't think we should actually have a juvenile hall, so I'm not interested in participating on that. I'd like to see that eliminated altogether, and individual who's behind bars should be getting treatment services for the most part versus being having this horrible culture of criminalizing those who live with mental illness. So I can take any questions anyone may have.
Thank you so much, Gigi. So it looks like you are applying for either the youth seat as the executive director of NAMI that does work and provide services to youth, or the faith-based seat through your congregation. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other follow-up from any RJOB member? All right, I'm not seeing any hands. Thank you so much, Gigi.
Thank you.
And the next applicant is Jackie Ajua. Is Jackie here? Jackie, I think you're on mute.
Yes. Yeah, I did the video before I did the audio.
Great. Well, thanks for joining.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me. Right. So just to introduce myself, I have been a resident of San Ramon for the last little over 17 years. Had 3 kids go through the school system, still have a couple going through the school system right now. I have a passion for diversity, equity, inclusion, leadership, and mentorship, and have been involved in DEI work at my organization for upwards of 10 years. I am currently on my school, my alma mater, so Brown University. I'm currently a member of the advisory council. It's an inaugural advisory council that was set up by the Dean of School of Professional Studies to work on ways to eliminate anti-Black racism. At my work organization, I work for a health insurance company, Blue Shield of California, which is the 3rd largest health insurer in the state. At my company, I am one of 14 leaders who are on the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Leadership Council that deal with issues around DEI for the organization. I represent health equity as well as the Black employees within my organization. I actually was one of the founders of the Black Employee Network at my organization 8 years ago, and have come full circle to now be the executive sponsor for that organization to speak and look at the data around time and role, promotions, access to opportunity, etc. This is my third country and third continent. So I am British born of Nigerian parents, and I have lived in all three of those countries. I actually claim all of them. I am a naturalized US citizen. And race in America, to me, especially as a Black person, is just different. It's a different experience. And I'm speaking from coming from the point of view of having lived in 3 different countries and always being Black. And over the last almost 30 years that I've lived in California, which is all of my time in the US, I've learned over time to understand more. And I used to feel like I didn't understand enough to actually make a difference. And what I've learned over the last 7 years, and especially what I think the whole country's learned over the last couple of years, and maybe not just the whole country, the world, is I realized that I probably know just as much as everybody else, and maybe even more. Like, there's a lot that we don't know. There's a lot of data that's not necessarily publicly shared, and there's just not a lot of awareness. And so a mom raising Black kids, and my kids have, every single one of my kids has been called the N-word in this district, in this city. I've been active at the school levels, at the board levels for education, and the superintendent of my school district told me that my kid was going to one of the most racist schools in San Ramon. I didn't say it, he did. My children are, my daughter, who's a sophomore, is involved, and she's at Cal High, and she's involved in the group, I think it's Speak Out, they call it, working with the principal and the board to deal with the issues that frequently come up at the school level. And I will tell you, one of the things where I'm passionate is, one, this is my community. I live here. I love it here. I have no intention of leaving. My oldest daughter is 26 years old, and I put her in police academy, youth police academy. Gosh, I think it's 10, 11, 12 years ago, and have been itching to put my other kids through that program when they were old enough. My youngest is a 14-year-old boy. For context, he's 6'2", probably weighs 150 pounds. And as a mother, sometimes I worry about, well, when he stops driving or if he's out and about, that is my child that could be viewed in a stereotypic way because of what he looks like. So that's a concern for me, especially his size. He's just a child. And my daughter, obviously, as well. And so both my kids, I've been hammering the police system to find out, is Youth Police Academy available this year, because it was canceled the last couple of years. And literally have been waiting to get them through that program because I feel like they need to know the system and understand its shortcomings and understand how it works, and also be familiar with the police system within my city. So those are my various reasons. With the clarification of youth-based being a leader within the church, I'm not going to call myself a leader within the church. I'm certainly very close to leadership. My husband is involved. I try not to put myself on things where I would not be able to commit. And I have not discussed it. I'm close with the pastor, and I have not discussed this with my pastor. I'm happy to go and do that and see if he's inclined to believe that this is something he wants a member of his congregation to represent. And if he's not, I am also happy to withdraw my application. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jackie. You answered a question that I had there in the last comment. Anyone else have follow-up questions for Jackie? Not seeing any. Thank you for being here, Jackie, and for doing the work that you're doing. Great, so the next applicant is Carrie Roberts, and I understand she has withdrawn. And after that, we have Magret Nunez. Hopefully I got that. Is that right, Margaret?
It's Margaret. It does not have the first R, and it's okay. I've had this all through school, so it's fine. It's Margaret without the first R. So thank you for inviting me today. It's wonderful to hear all of that's being shared from the applicants. So I'm glad I was able to attend. I am Margaret Noon, she, her, hers. I'm calling in from school over in Crockett, which is on the unceded land of the Carcans. And I am here because I am continuing my racial justice work. I've been a public school teacher for over 30 years. I started in Richmond at Kennedy High School over 30 years ago and been to a few districts, and now I'm at John Swett Unified in Crockett, north of Richmond, where I've been for over 25 years. I am seated at the high school campus, but I work in alternative ed, in independent study and continuation school. So I'm really a last step for many of our students. And since I am on the campus, I work with all of the students here on campus. They come see me on social justice issues regularly. And I've been, this is a passion of mine I've always had. And more recently, I have done some events. I recognize some people on the call today to address the disparities in our criminal justice system. I also am very interested in disrupting the systemic racism that exists in our institutions, specifically in our schools. It was already mentioned, the school to prison pipeline. I'm focusing on the school end of that pipeline to disrupt and thwart that entrance into the pipeline where students, our marginalized students, our Black and Brown BIPOC students, really constitute the majority of the suspensions and expulsions and are being criminalized. So my focus is on disrupting and changing that. Also in the community, as far as labor, I serve as co-chair on the Racial Justice Committee for our Labor Council, because many of our jobs and trades are biased because they're set up to make it difficult for BIPOC to become part of an organization or to get a job. And specifically as a teacher, I know that our credentialing system is set up to make it difficult for non-white teachers to go into teaching. And that's done on purpose. So I have worked with a variety of organizations. I've been really involved in the development of the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. I'm pushing to support legislative action to establish a statewide Office of Racial Equity, SB 17, PAN's initiative, and continually doing work in my school community, lifting the voice of my students. We've put together a social justice activist committee with stakeholders from our entire school community to make change in our system, and our students are lifting up their voices. They know their rights. And it's very exciting to work with them in what they need. We talked about trauma, and we're looking into those areas too, and how often that results in students being criminalized. So I'm happy to be here. I'm applying for seat 9. As far as the subcommittees, I'm interested in all of them. The youth project for the community engagement, I'm intrigued by. I'm all about data. I noticed Dr. Will Walker's name. He and I have had some discussions about we just got to start with the data. We start with the data and build from there. And the diversion as far as models to base our work on. So I'm interested in all of the subcommittees. Because of my program, I'm available at any time. I work one-on-one with most of my students, so my schedule is flexible, even though I'm a full-time public school teacher in Contra Costa County. And I went through the school system in Contra Costa County as well. Both of my children also went through the school system here. And my children are activists and been very vocal, and it's obvious things haven't changed that much in our schools. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret, for your work in our schools. there anyone that has follow-up questions for Margaret? All right, I'm not seeing any. Thanks again. And we're going to move on to Pablo Martinez.
How do I follow Margaret? Oh my goodness.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. Well, I'm Pablo. The reason why I want to be part of this is, well, let me tell you a little bit. I was a business owner for 20 years in downtown Martinez. I own a shoe repair business. When I was in Martinez, I served 9 years at the board of directors for Main Street, and then 2 years at the CAP for Shell, which is a community advisory panel. I am currently a board member of Support for Recovery, and it's a nonprofit for substance abuse people who finish treatment and we get them housing. So right now, what I do is I'm a coordinator for Pueblo del Sol, which is a Spanish-speaking substance abuse facility. And it's the only one in Contra Costa and also the only detox center. Actually, they just opened one in Richmond, but for my, what I want to do really is being a troubled youth, I see a big problem now with drugs and alcohol, especially with their youth. And I think that, you know, I can make an impact in their lives. I want to be part of this. Like I said, me being here at the facility, I get lots of calls from mothers that I can't help because this is for older people. But the racial disparity it's big. It's a big thing for me. I want to make a difference on that. I think that's it. I mean, I have a lot of things to say, but I want to keep it short. Let me see if I forget something. That's it. I mean, if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you so much. And my follow-up question would be, are you applying for this seat?
Either one. Yeah, either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you would qualify for the youth seat?
Because again, I mean, being in the substance abuse facility, I think, you know, that the biggest impact we make about our youth learning drugs is when they're early at that stage of when we can make a difference, right? So, I mean, again, I work with adults here, and you know, it's a big difference when I work with, let's say, it's changed quite a bit here for us. I mean, I think within the last couple of years, I've been able to work with a lot of 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds that are in here for treatment. That's why I would say that I qualify for that position where I can make an impact with the youth.
Got it. Thank you. Does anyone else have questions for Pablo? All right, I'm not seeing any hands. Thanks again, Pablo.
Thank you.
All right, and our next applicant, I understand that Denise Thomas withdrew due to her analysis of not qualifying potentially for one of these very specific seats. The next applicant is Yvette Varis. Is Yvette here?
No, Yvette's not here.
Okay, great.
Did not withdraw, but she's not here, so I don't know if you guys want to talk about the application.
Sure, I'm happy to. And would you mind just showing us the summary, and we can kind of highlight maybe so I'll just kind of highlight some of the work here. Yvette says, I currently serve on the board for the youth-based organization San Ramon Valley Thunderbirds Football and Cheer, a licensed loan officer, and feel the systematic fair treatment of people of all races, resulting in equitable opportunities and outcomes for all, is essential for our community and youth. And Yvette is a licensed loan officer of 22 years with the Loan Depot for the past 8. Treasurer, Executive Board of Directors for the San Ramon Valley Thunderbirds Football and Cheer. Director of Finance, Board of Directors, again for the Football and Cheer. And CFO and Managing Partner for Lions, Pride, Strength and Fitness, and then bilingual English and Spanish. Thank you. All right, and our next, I think we only have one more applicant. We have Bessie Scoggins who withdrew, and then Talia Moore who withdrew. So the remaining person I have listed as an applicant is Aria Capelli. Is Aria here?
She's in high school, does not get out for until 3 o'clock. So she was planning on joining at 3, but her application is here.
Wonderful. So let's maybe do the same thing if you don't mind finding the applicant paragraph. Great. So Aria says, I believe in equity and in working to eradicate disparities within and between communities. And for that reason, I would like to be part of the Contra Costa County's Racial Justice Oversight Body. When the pandemic grabbed hold of the pre-existing fissures and injustices in education and ripped them into canyons, and as I too, frankly, found myself searching for something more purposeful to do than canned Zoom school or a Netflix watch party, I co-founded the nonprofit Meaningful Teens to teach literacy skills to students falling even farther behind without individualized in-person instruction. Education is supposed to be the route to equal opportunity, the yellow brick road to the American dream. So if we can't provide equitably, we compromise our ability to create a society that operates fairly in any other way. Although we successfully snagged donated tables and headphones, I soon realized our challenges reaching our students ran much deeper than the glib technological veneer. Many of my students were caught in a net, different structures and systems knit together and weaved through their daily experiences and their family histories. My eyes opened for the first time to the larger reality my students inhabited. I felt like I'd seen a corner of the matrix, a few pixels that actually showed just how vast and tangled and hard to comprehend the whole system was. A multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiple person myself, I'd never been ignorant of the fact that our society carves different paths for different kinds of people, or of the impact that a person's background can have on their life course or opportunities. But the pandemic brought these issues into even greater relief, laying them at my doorstep, or at least at my desktop. Our little organization blossomed and spread, eventually recruiting thousands of volunteers and hundreds of students and combining forces with other organizations. We partnered with Serve Square to provide students within the foster care system mentorship experiences as MT volunteers, and worked with the Compass Family Services to help homeless and at-risk families in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was proud of what we did. I knew what I was doing mattered, even if just to the students I was able to help. But I also saw how little it was. Volunteering and philanthropy without changes to policy can only go so far. The larger structures that really need to change require community action, political action. Teenagers, especially those of us who can't even vote yet, rarely have the opportunity to participate in our communities at that level. We're often the first initiates into the justice system, and yet we're too often viewed as a problem to be managed rather than critical stakeholders. I'd like to join the Racial Justice Oversight Body so I can literally and figuratively take a seat at the table and help to build a more inclusive, just, and healthy future for everyone. I think given how meaty this is, I'll let folks read the second piece on their own, and it's in your packet. So Aria is submitting experience as being the founder of Meaningful Teens, Meaningful Gardens founder, working with Smart Recycling, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Social Justice Club ambassador, a student council leader, a peer counselor, and Nibby Brothers construction intern. Thank you, Nicole. Great, and so that is, oops, and I see Isa has a hand up. Yes, Isa.
So I was gonna say, when I read Ms. Capelli, Mr., I'm not sure exactly, the application initially with our packets, I thought, oh my gosh, this young person has really positioned him or herself well for this sort of seat. I was concerned, however, with the ability to participate, particularly given the requirement to participate in a subcommittee. Now, I know some commissions and advisory bodies have opted to meet later to ensure the youth voice and ease of participation. I don't know if this body would consider that. I know we did vote on meeting schedule and time last time, but I thought that this person seemed very well positioned and experienced to have some really neat perspective for this body.
I did Issa inquire about that because that came up as a question for myself too. And she assured me that her teachers support her in attending these meetings and that the time shouldn't be a conflict.
Oops, thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Issa. Lynn, did you have a question? All right, I think we should take a 1 or 2 minute stretch break since we've been sitting for so long, and then we can talk about our next steps in this discussion. Thank you, everyone. I just want us to avoid getting Zoom fatigue and refresh a bit. But hopefully we can pivot back here. All right, everyone, are you ready to reconvene our job members? All right, so obviously we have a lot of interest. I received a message that Aria will be here at 3 o'clock if we would like to pivot and be a little flexible with our agenda, maybe take the presentation on racial and ethnic data next. And then we can reconvene our discussion about the vacant seats after the presentation and allow Aria to both not skip school and address us as well. So thanks, Nicole, for letting me know about that. So unless I see any objections from anybody on the body, we will go ahead and take our presentation on racial and ethnic data collection from the W. Hayward Burns Institute. And does that work for you all, Christopher?
Yeah, I think that works for us. I will just say that as we get started, Roxana is joining us from the East Coast. So we were trying to make this as, as smooth a transition as possible. Now have her in the meeting for too long. I was just on the East Coast last week trying to still do our job stuff, so I know what that feels like. But she is quite an esteemed colleague, to say the least. Racial justice and well-being senior strategist with a specialization in systems change with the W. Hayward Burns Institute. Long resume that maybe she'll get into in terms of a bit of an intro for herself when she's ready to, to join. But I'm happy to introduce to some or to present to others Roxana Matiella to speak with us about ethnicity data collection. I think, and Roxana, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're going to be looking for a little bit of participation or interaction, or maybe asking some questions. So just want to flag that for folks. Hope that you all feel free to unmute and to kind of join in the discussion to get the most out of what she has to present. And without further ado, I will let you take it from there.
Hi, good afternoon to all of you, or evening. I'm sure everyone's probably in California. Can you guys see the screen? Is the presentation up? Okay, because it always does what it's gonna do, right? And so good, it's working today. It's gonna be a good rest of your meeting. Good energy that we're sending your way. Thank you for having me. This is really what we would call a snapshot of, what we've put together for best practices in leading racial equity work. A huge component of racial equity work is around collecting data. And then as you dig deeper, it's critical to understand ethnicity data and why and where the differences are between race and ethnicity, and how, why it matters and the story behind it. So I'm going to run through some of these slides, really just have a conversation with you. If you have any questions, comments, stories, whatever, just jump in, unmute yourself, and please jump in. It's not that lengthy. We do have another component to this best practices. If anyone is interested, or when you are interested, we're happy to definitely share the different faces of all this and all the other areas around the country who have taken this work on, who have measures that can support the significant changes in outcomes, funding, everything that I'm going to preview here today. So again, thank you in advance for this opportunity and for your time, but more importantly, for your intentionality in leading this work and doing it the right way. So with that said, I'm just going to briefly mention some whys. I'm hopeful that most people are already aligned. People understand what this work is about, and more importantly, what data collection and race and ethnicity really mean and what it doesn't mean. But just for those, just so we could all be on the same page, I'll just highlight the historical components that we call around structural racism and the work around racial justice. So as we all know, the way America was created, race is a social construct. It was very intentionally, race is something that was created very intentionally to divide certain groups like us for a specific purpose, social control. And we call it the evil design of these structures or these constructs that allow us to be who we are today, and the unfortunate outcomes that we continue to see today. And obviously that's the work that we all huddle around to dismantle and to move away from these social constructs. But ethnicity matters in a whole different way when it comes to data collection. It's a whole different conversation when we're putting it just under race. But for today's purpose, we're going to talk about data collection and how it's tied into the US Census and how that's tied into budgets and, more importantly, funding, because that really are the collateral consequences of not collecting ethnicity data and being fooled with these high numbers of white race categories that really do not categorize the people of that fall under ethnicity. And so we're going to go a little bit around U.S. Census. It's important to understand it, how it impacts the criminal justice system, and really every institution, or we call organizations that fall under any type of structure components. If you're collecting data, if you work under anything, this really is an important topic for people to understand. We understand also that reform work, data should always lead your decision making. It exposes decision making, and so it's important to correctly collect it and analyze it. And more importantly, people of color, we understand the gross disparities and these outcomes that we are all continuing to strategize around dismantling and improving. And so if you don't have good data collection, then you will not be able to do really, your due diligence, and particularly for specific populations. So when we talk about this, and as we move forward with this conversation, we just ask you to continually always be thinking about who is included in your process, particularly around data collection, and who's excluded, intentionally or unintentionally, right? It's all part of othering and belonging. So keep that in mind as we go through this conversation. So just a little bit of history. I won't go through every bullet point. You guys will have this slide deck for your reference. But as we know, the U.S. Census matters. This is who we report to at the end of the day. That's where the big dollars come down and then filter down from federal, from state to localities. And so we know that every 10 years, the U.S. Census comes out, it's collected, there may be changes, there may not. The information I'm giving you here today is based on our current census and template and mandates of collecting. And so the reason we start there is because at the end of the day, there are some minimum mandates that we all follow, and that's based on anything. I see a hand up. Chris, I'm going to ask you to help me with the hands because I might just keep going. And if there's an important question or comment, more importantly, because we want to learn from each other, I'm happy to jump in. But I see Jeff. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. And it was the same comment that I saw in the chat, just making sure that the slides were progressing as you were walking us through. But this is all terrific so far.
Okay, good. And so again, formulating this, that you're thinking around what U.S. Census means, how it really came to be. It didn't come to be for the purposes that we all wanted it to be, or for the intentions that we have today. It's definitely done with very oppressive thinking, very oppressive structures, and this is what we live in today. And so not that long ago, for those who don't know, some of you guys may know, Jeopardy information, not until 1960, really, people were able to select their own race, but that doesn't mean it populates all of us. So for today's purpose, I want you guys to all right now consider yourselves Latinos.
Roxana?
Yeah.
Give me a sec. So we're I think you're referring to some information that's on your slides, but we only see like your first screen.
Oh,
so
it's not moving?
It's not moving for us. We're still on the please do not steal our materials slide.
Really? No wonder Jeff asked that question. Like, where are you at? Okay, so let me do this. I'm gonna stop sharing and try it again and see and see if that works. See technology. So it says you can see my screen. I'm not even sure what do you see?
We see the first slide that you have, slide 1.
You still see that? Okay.
Yep.
If you click slideshow, Roxana, if you click slideshow, there's a little button at the tab there that says slideshow.
Yeah, so I lost the entire presentation on my end. So let me try it again. And I'm going to go here.
And if you need me to, I can share the PowerPoint. You just need to help me when you need the next slide. If that.
Yeah, let's do that so we don't, I don't take you through my painful IT issues. Yeah, if you want to pull it up or if you have it, yeah, there we go. So let's see. Yeah, let's just keep going. Keep going. So this is where I was, talking about that one section, right? So there we go. When I was talking about race and social just the components of just today's conversation. Keep going, please. Next one. And then that's where, you know, we stopped. And so I was talking to you about the US Census, how it's framed, how it exists, how it exists through the racial lens. And this is, you know, really the impact that, you know, we're asking all of you to see it through today and then moving forward. Next slide. And so this is where I was, right? So this is your US Census template. This is a template. Now, you may see other templates, and that's because individual organizations or institutions have taken some data collection pieces and added to them, maybe, hopefully, right, in a positive way. But this is the mandate. This is what we report back. This is a new US Census that just came out. And so this is how it goes. So I am, and I had said, you know, for this, the purpose of today's conversation, or just right now, an exercise would be everybody's going to be considered Latino. And so you go to this box, and so we're going to go through this together. What is first your race? Please mark one. Or more boxes, I guess, if you can. So you're Latino, I'm Latino. Let's find ourselves. Where would you guys, let's see, some other race. So you may print it there or may not print it there, or if, I don't know how you, so we usually say, what does your data system look like? Right? Does it have these identifiers? But the US Census, these are the races that the US Census has allowed us to identify individuals with, and that's it, right? So obviously there's a lot of questions and comments and great conversation we can have about mixed race, about all kinds of things, right? That we should be having. But this is the US Census. So, in most places, other is not an option, and you cannot go to page 2, which is the ethnicity question, until you mark something. And so historically, through research, what we find and what we see is that most people who do not fall under any of these categories, like Latinos, and we can mention Latinos since they're one of the largest majority in the country and moving towards that, is most people historically have marked white or mark white. In the last 4 to 5 years, research is showing that more Latinos are marking Black or the African-American box, right? And so what does that mean? It means a lot of things. It means that your white population can be skewed, right? Your Latino population or Hispanic is what the government official name is for Latinos, can be skewed, right? Specifically in certain areas. And so if you walk around, particularly in schools or, you know, detentions or jails or things like that, and you see Black and brown bodies, but yet your data might not, you know, it should make you curious. Is it really, really that population? So we have the general population and then institution populations that really should mirror each other. But normally don't. Next slide, please. And so next slide. And so when we talk about the collateral consequences, we can go on and on, but the key takeaway for today is funding, voice, and why it's important to do the right thing. And so then you say, well, Roxana, what's the right thing? So let's talk about what we consider best practices. And we say, us, the Burns Institute, but that's all the collective research that we have to bring to you. Next slide. And so it's very simple, right? It's very simple, but obviously it's more complex because of the structures that exist. So self-identification is best practices, which means individuals like yourselves and myself, we get to identify and let you know where our race or ethnicity is. Historically, it's through somebody else observing us and stereotyping, and then they check that box for us. And so it matters. You need to understand how your data's coming to you, where it's starting, and then how do you create a self-correcting system versus being a reactive system, right? So if law enforcement is your first data collection, then we have to work with them. But if they may or may not be able to self-correct, then we have to create structures that around your decision point or your institution, this is corrected. And it goes back to self-identification, not the observation of someone's characteristics or how they look. That leads to a lot of trouble, a lot of racism, a lot of inappropriate and inadequate data collection. So we ask you, do you know how your institutions or your organizations collect data? That's key. You need to know that. As leaders of this work, as participants of this work, you have to be able to answer that question. And we're hopeful that you're able to do that. Next slide, please. And so definitions are really important. Normally, the definitions come to us by the good old US Census, right? But there's layers and different layers of that. So we are happy to provide the definitions that we feel are within the parameters of identifying individuals through race and ethnicity. But it's really important that no matter who collects data, no matter how you're correcting your data, that there are clear definitions on how people define themselves or how people, because, you know, people say, well, here you have Hispanic and you have Latino. What does that mean? Well, there's differences. And so, for example, in America, Latinos have just a big old umbrella and one big box. Does that accurately represent individuals? Absolutely not. Right? Because Latinos come from all kinds of different backgrounds, different languages, and different areas of the world as well. It's not just one central location. And so that's the same as we continue being this wonderful melting pot of America filled with diversity. You're going to see the same issues with the Black and African American. We see the same thing, you know, as a lot more people come from different parts of Africa, we have to start identifying them differently so we can understand their needs, so we can understand how to properly fund and budget alternatives or programming, everything that has to, that's part of creating and supporting communities and the well-being of the work. Next slide, please. And so really it's very simple when the process is you first ask the ethnicity question. So you have to lead through the ethnicity question, not through the race question. Why? Because the race question has a lot of filters and it immediately excludes individuals. And so that's the first question we would ask. Does your data collection lead through the ethnicity question? And if it doesn't, why? And then how can we get to that? And again, there's a whole training and there's a whole procedure that we're happy to share with you on, especially those who are doing the interviews and collecting the data, on how to go step by step in doing that successfully, and also mitigating some of the barriers and challenges that can come to them and with them. Next slide, please. And so that's exactly what I had mentioned. And so the next slide will, and so right now we highlight Latinos, but it really depends. There's places in all kinds of part of the country. So like in North Carolina, over there, they're having a larger population of Russians, right? This umbrella. Then now there's different layers of just, they're not identifying these individuals, but they're landing in systems, they're landing institutions, they're landing with high level needs that, you know, we're not even able to properly fund them because no one's really identifying them. So there's layers and multiple layers. And so you would need to see what's in your population, who are you excluding, and how do we identify them so we can be able to properly serve and support. Next slide. And again, this one just takes you through the second question, the procedure that we just saw. And again, it really depends on how you collect data, what your systems look like. Is it a template? Is it a box? Is it a computer? It just really depends on the physical procedure that people go through. Next one. And we always say beware of the other box, right? So when you're getting your data reports and your other box is large, those numbers are large, or they're, to us, everybody matters, right? But we always say, well, who's other? And why are we having so many people fall under other? That's an investigation that somebody should take serious, because you're not counting somebody, or we're just, all these people are falling under other. So maybe there's some due diligence that we have to do to make sure that we're identifying people correctly. And then we have what we call the third question is really around Native Americans as well, because we don't tend to ask tribal affiliation, and that is critical. Again, they also don't fall under a big box and umbrella, right? And so asking tribal affiliation for Native American individuals is really, really important. And it really falls under all kinds of other legalities for people who don't understand tribal notifications or data collection for Native American individuals, especially children. Next one. And so barriers, we just wanted to highlight quickly some barriers that you may already be familiar with, or you may not. So reasons why people just won't give you the right information are for a lot of reasons, but what do we see that's more common is immigration, right? Why do you want this information, and why people might not be giving you the right information? But data collection has nothing to do with immigration purposes. And so there's a whole facilitation process that people who are collecting, or what we call the interviews, need to understand and need to know how to navigate these questions around immigration. Again, we're not collecting information to deport people. We're collecting information to better serve the communities that we have committed to serving and supporting. And if we're clear on that objective, then we will know how to mitigate around immigration issues. Other barriers are Miranda rights, people already in the system. Again, we're never really clear about on why we're collecting this race and ethnicity. We just collected like a big old checklist. And so it's really important to humanize data collection process as well, and explain to individuals why we need this information, and it is to support them in their communities, and however they are there, they're important. And then again, people get confused because only in America do we have this ethnicity thing, right? And in other countries, they're race. And in here, for a lot of reasons, it's been separated as two, and it could be confusing to people who've landed in this country and they're not familiar with our social construct process of race. And then obviously interviews approach. You know, how you ask the question, how you're trying to get this information matters, and how genuine people will be. And then we always ask, like, how many times can people change their mind or change who they identify as? And really the answer is how many times they want to. That's really a myth that people think that happens. Most people are very consistent, but they have the right to change their mind and say, no, I'm Black, or I'm Latino, or I'm white. And we have to change it as they indicate that to us. Next slide. Okay, so that's the end of the snapshots. So really, the takeaway is, you know, we ask you to assess, you know, to know how you, most places are doing an okay job, but most places really need to understand this, make it an intentionality part of your racial leadership work. And we just want to let you know that we're here. We have a lot of tools and resources and a lot of really great counties and states are taking this on, and it's making a big difference. And so we're also happy to share that work with you if you're interested. So I will stop my presentation and take questions if you have any. If not, thank you for the opportunity and thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank
you so much.
You got a couple of questions, actually.
Okay. Let's see. I see Gigi. Did I say
that? So I'm always perturbed and end up eating a banana split after I see these kind of trainings where I see they only give 3 options for people of African descent. You're either Black, African American, or Negro, but then they break down the other groups a lot more. And so how would you suggest we advocate for that type of a change? Because there's we come from a variety of different backgrounds as well. And then when you go to the API, it's not as broad as well, but at least they give a little bit more options. So do you have any advocacy tips? Because we're doing that in mental health as well.
Yeah, see, I mean, I think you have to understand who is you have to pay attention and who's around. I'll give you an example. In Arizona, they started getting a bunch of refugees, a lot of people from Somalia, a lot of people from camp wars, and they were just bucketed under Black, right? And so funding, nothing, especially in behavioral health. Here we're sending people through our traditional American way of counseling and consequences and probation. And little did we know all the history, right? All the things that come with that. Most males are murdered in these camps. Women are coming here with their children. Women are not allowed to tell boys what to do, how to do, couldn't even sign probation orders. I mean, it was really, and so we were just calling them defiant. They were back, in institutions, all these things, but we were ignorant. We weren't paying attention. We wanted people to come in through our American traditional structure. So what we would say is pay attention who your community is. And have them self-identify and start baselining. Let's pilot stuff. And let's see who's that population that you need to start paying more attention. But you just named it. You just said it's not okay to only have 3 boxes. So let's have 3 more. And let's see where that takes us. And let's revisit this, in a quarter, in 6 months, in a year.
Thank you.
Cheryl?
So, thank you. And sort of what Gigi's talking about, I think that it's, I'm always for self-identification, except for 2 things, because this is where it gets a little tricky. For multiracial people, such as myself, it does get tricky because, I happen to be Latina. But for those people, as you have definitely mentioned earlier, that many times they're steered towards saying they're white. So it skews the data. And before, people from the Middle East were skewed towards saying they are white. Because before you couldn't be an immigrant in this country and apply for citizenship unless you were white. So I think we have to be careful with saying that you have to be careful with certain parameters around self-identification if it's always going to end with someone saying they're white. Because there's a certain benefit to saying you're white and having that on paper. And there's a certain negativity to saying that you're Black. So there's an anti-Blackness in this country that we all know about. There's an anti-brownness in this country that we all know about. And this racial justice oversight body is tasked with looking at the gaps, looking at why we have such a fissure between the arrest of Black and brown people, especially young people, rather than whites. And so if everybody runs in, if the officer stops Cheryl and just says, and he says my ethnicity, and I say I'm white, I'm not lying, it is true, right? Or if I say I'm Latina, it is true. Or I could say Black, it would be true. So I think that there is a very fine line between self-identification and not being able to get true data. And if we're not going to get true data, then we have a problem. Then we cannot track these disparities that we know are occurring in this criminal punishment system, which is what we are trying to do here. And that is the issue that we are having with our law enforcement entities, not all of them, because we've gotten some great support from our probation. Thank you so much, probation. But we have these issues throughout our county. So I guess what we need from you guys, and thank you, Christopher, it's been great help with this, is coming up with that middle ground, because it's not enough to say, oh, we only go with self-identified. Everybody in the county be saying they're white, because there's a benefit to it, and there is none for saying that you're Black or you're brown. So this is what I'm going to say. And the word Negro, really? Really? We got the word Negro?
That's your Census. We didn't put that. Obviously, we
I know. It's not for you. I'm just saying that in the universe.
Yeah. You bring up a really excellent point, right? Where there has to be a lot of effort put into the mixed option, and then creating that safe space around that. You might not get it with law enforcement right now, but there's a lot of piloting that you could do around mix, and then trying to see where that leads for the purpose of, obviously, a safe space, getting community to self-identify, and really, resourcing. Does it make a difference? It will. It will make a difference if it's through the lens of you supporting to fund resources and communities for their well-being. If it's for other intentions, then you're just doing this is what structural racism is, right? The outcomes are going to continue being the outcomes because this is how it was created to be. None of this is an accident. None of this is wrong. This is what we're fighting against. And so being aware, creating a mixed category that you really do put some real effort into trying to have a purpose here. And then what are you going to do with that information? Thank you for that comment. Anyone else? Am I missing anyone or something that? Well, hopefully this is enough to just get you curious and get you upset a little bit, because you gotta be a little bit upset about this in order to move forward. We're here, we're excited, and whenever you're ready, we're gonna continue doing this. So thank you for doing it with us.
Well, before you go, there's one hand up for you. That's Jeff.
Jeff.
Thanks, Roxana. I really appreciated the presentation, and there's so much to think about with ways that we could expand what we're doing. I did start to think also about being able to work with what we have, which is not to kind of just justify that and pretend what we have is acceptable, because there's lots of ways that it's insufficient. But I also want to avoid any sort of inaction due to saying, well, we don't have it on this front that doesn't meet those things, so we can't use this now. So in the sense that, basically your thoughts about that, if we know that we're using data that's not self-reported, for example, can we still, your thoughts and having the expertise and how we can act with that in the meantime as we're building up what we need to do to have better reporting?
Yeah, first we're clear on that, right? We have to get clear on we are not collecting the data how we should be collecting it. So if that's a clear answer, then we start there. We baseline it. As of this day, let's say we take probation. You guys said probation is really doing, so we take probation and we say, as of this day, we're going to create this structure where we start collecting data, and then we're going to pilot. And we're going to start seeing those differences, and we train and we move forward, and hopefully, success is really contagious, and hopefully other institutions or organizations will want to do the same. And then before you know it, we are creating a new culture, new expectations, new policies. And then we start, messaging that so communities understand that we're doing this for them and we need them to be part of these conversations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know who's facilitating, so I'll just jump right in. I also did do some advocacy around that word Negro, and the numbers actually went down in some nationwide work around the state, because this country has done such a good job of defining people and their background that in the South, they were not showing up for the census because they didn't identify as Black or as African American. Then when they put it back on there, some individuals, the numbers went back up. So we're ways away of getting that one removed completely, because of individuals largely in the South that still refer to themselves from the conditioning of this country on how they identify with themselves. So that's sad, but hopefully there's not new generations of folks okay with that, but there's still some that prefer that, sadly.
And I guess I could say before I go is that everyone's so busy, you know, the work you do is so important, but pay attention to census legislation and language and vote on it and give opinions. Because, you know, we don't get it that often. It's every 10 years. Also, we want to change that. But you matter, your positions matter, your power matters. Use it in that sense. And so hopefully today you're curious enough to go read and to go ask, what is our local U.S. Census language legislation? Who's pushing this? Who are the lead? And be part of that, you know, have a voice, say, I want to review that. I want to vote on that. I want to have a voice. And if you do that, and then you spread that word around, we could change this, and we will change this. And we won't have to have these conversations moving forward, because there'll be a fair way to be able to serve everybody, and every voice matters. Everybody matters, and people are not being included strategically, right? For funding reasons. We all know that that's what U.S. Census is. So thank you.
Thank you, Roxana. That was a great presentation. Thank you. I think what we'll do, unless is Aria here? Aria Capelli hasn't joined yet. Okay, so we haven't
joined yet. I mean, school gets out at 3, so I'm assuming she's going to need some time to get.
Sounds good. So what we could do is start with a vote for seat 8, since that seat is the a discussion, I would say, and a vote for seat 8, which is the representative from a faith-based organization. And from the notes that I have, and I think we can all sort of submit our understanding, Deborah Hoffman-Wade and Gigi Crowder were the 2 individuals who submitted under the seat 8 parameters for a representative from a faith-based organization. Was there anyone else that any other Our Job member had under those parameters who we could put up for a vote under seat 8? Don't see any hands. Great. And then does anyone have discussion regarding these 2 members or potential applicants? Jeff.
I know, raising my hand a lot. But I'll just take the moment to say that I've known Gigi Crowder as an advocate in different spaces, and believe that she'd be tremendous to join us in terms of maybe so many different important factors, but knowledge of the system and willingness, readiness to speak up when it's not right, when there's something that needs to be called out. And I know that Gigi is very strong in both of those areas. So I would love to have her join if she can.
Thank you, Jeff. Cheryl, I see your hand up as well.
I'm going to agree with Jeff, but I also wanted to say that I think that one of the things that we've spoken about on this oversight body in extensive dialogue is about mental health and how that plays into this criminal legal and criminal punishment system. And so to have that kind of voice and that kind of lens, I think is very important. And also, I think that having that's the experience, but also having someone who is willing to challenge the system, as I know Ms. Gigi has done, because we happen to be in many circles together in different committees, is important. But having that lens from a very grassroots organization, as NAMI has been, even though it's a big organization, but it's small. It operates from a very small center. And being able to look at it from adult and from youth perspective, I think is very important. And having done a lot of court watching and being in and out of the system, not only in our community, but in the actual legal system, I think that she's able to give us, give each of the committees, I'm not sure what committee she's interested in, but I know that she's attended some of our diversion discussions. And I think that it just gives a fresh perspective and a good perspective, something that we all have been speaking about, especially when it comes to mental health. So there's where I stand with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any other member of the oversight body like to be heard before we vote on this? And I'll just say again, I think it's fantastic. I've sat in so many of these meetings where we have more open seats than applicants or vacancies on our committees and task forces that go on for way too long. So it's wonderful to have so many folks from different areas of the county and doing different work who are so passionate and interested in spending their time with us. And for each of you, I hope that you will really take us in earnest, whether or not, if you're not selected today, and apply for some of the other vacant seats. I know I'll make a brief plug, the community advisory body for AB 109, I believe often has vacancies and alternate vacancies. And right now, I know it's very difficult to find folks from West County for the community advisory body for AB 109. So I know we had some other plugs for vacancies, but that's another one to consider. And Isa, yes?
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to have to jump off here shortly. First, I could not agree more with the prior speakers around Gigi's qualifications when it comes to the mental health voice, but I think I may have missed her connection to a faith-based organization and her leadership role. I didn't see that direct connection, but I may have missed something earlier. Could you clarify for me, please?
I'm an elder at my church, have been for the last 35 years, ordained in 1990 when my children were young at a Presbyterian church, and then I moved on to the Church for Me with Bishop David Hollister in Antioch, and then on to Pastor Chris Williams in Brentwood. So that title has carried, once you're an elder, you're always an elder. And I've created faith-based curriculum. When people are in distress or in prison, they first turn to their faith community for support. So that's been my ministry for the last 30 years, as I shared earlier. Thanks.
And I made a note that you said earlier, Gigi, that you had urged your pastor to join the Racial Justice Oversight Body. Your pastor declined, but asked you to join as a representative of your church family. Is that right? Okay.
Thank you, Ellen.
Great, thank you, Isa. Anyone else on this topic? And I'll just say as well, I think Gigi would bring an important voice to this group. And I think, we think about all of these intersecting systems where there are inequities, injustices, and gaps. And Gigi has a very intricate knowledge, both from lived experience and from so much advocacy for folks going through the systems of both our criminal legal system and our mental health system that's you know, I think some of the most refined expertise in the county, I think of the intersection and some of the gaps and struggles for folks suffering from mental health issues, and especially for people of color. So I would share the sentiment of the prior speakers. So anyone else like to be heard before we vote on seat 8, the community-based representative seat for a faith-based organization? I see Melissa. Yes, Melissa.
Thank you. And I do agree. I've had an opportunity to listen to some committees where Gigi has been present and heard her expertise, especially with mental health. But I was particularly impressed with Deborah Hoffman-Wade's diverse background. And I thought, although I have not met her before, I thought she does have a unique perspective with and comes from kind of a myriad of different like religious and race and ethnic backgrounds, not only her own, but her significant others and from her experiences. So I was particularly impressed by Deborah as well.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I agree. Deborah brought a lot of really diverse pieces to the table. Anyone else? And I'll ask Nicole if there's not anyone else to go ahead and have us vote.
Did we want to open up for public comment, or did we?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Thank you. And is there any public comment?
Ellen, if I could just pause you for just 1 second. This is Jill Ray. A motion has not been made, just FYI. So if somebody would need to make a motion, somebody would need to second it and then open it for public comment after everybody's had their comments.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, I see Cheryl's. Is your hand up, Cheryl?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion unless you're finished, unless there's still more comments.
Great. Let's see if there's any public comment, and then I'll take a motion. Before we vote, is there any public comment on?
Ellen?
No, I think I have to make the motion and then public comment.
Yeah, yeah.
Got
exactly.
It. And will we do public comment, just to be clear, after motions on both seats, or we're going to do it, maybe we'll do it one seat at a time, I think, since we're okay. Thanks, Cheryl.
I was just waiting to see if there's any more comments from our group.
Great.
Before I make the motion.
I do not see any hands. Last call for comments from the oversight body. There are not. Yes, Cheryl.
Okay, good. So I move that this body recommends Ms. Gigi Crowder for the seat, is it 8?
It is
to fill the vacancy for community-based representative seat 8.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Nicole, would you take a vote, please?
No, you need to comment first.
Okay. I'll get this, you guys.
Sorry, Nicole.
Public comment. Any public comment on this item? On seat 8. All right, I'm not seeing any. All right, Nicole.
All right, Melissa.
I'm actually now seeing that there was a hand. Is that just in time?
I just saw a hand too, and yes, it is just in time. Thank you, Jeff. I see a hand from Taban.
I would just like to add, you know, just listening to the different stuff. I haven't gotten to read all their information, but I really think that from a public standpoint, that Miss Gigi did impress me as far as the rounded background she has and the things she's been involved with. So that's, you know, I would recommend her. So just that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the comment. Let's see, anyone else from the public? All right. Now I believe we may take a vote. Thank you, Nicole.
Melissa?
I'm gonna vote no. My vote would be for Deborah if that was the motion. Thank you.
Melvin?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
D.A. Beckton?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Tamisha?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Shayla?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Ronell?
Yes.
Cheryl? Yeah. Okay. Motion passes unanimously. I'm sorry, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you to both of our very qualified applicants. And now we will discuss the seat 9. And I have a list for this seat as well. I understand we still do need to hear from Aria, who has joined us now. Aria, thank you so much for being here. And we know we were told you were finishing your school day, so we're grateful that you were. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. And I know you missed when the other candidates presented, but I can give you just our request would be that in 1 to 2 minutes, if you could please tell us what your qualifications are for joining the Racial Justice Oversight Body, why you're interested, and what we let the other applicants know was that we require meetings every 90 days, and those meetings are similar to the one today. They'll be on a Thursday afternoon and last about 3 hours long. We also have meetings that are for our subcommittee, and each oversight body member must join one of the 3 subcommittees, and those will be meetings that occur also on Thursdays, different parts of the day, and some of those may be, one of those subcommittees may be more workable in terms of with your school day, in terms of the hours. So I will assume for you that you're applying for what we're calling seat 9, which is a representative who is either a school-aged young person like yourself or from a community-based organization. So you don't need to get into which seat you're applying under because we know you are a young person applying, but thank you.
Yeah, so hi, my name's Aria. I'm a sophomore and I go to the Athenian School. This year we launched a program called the Deis Internship, which stands for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Social Justice. So I've been a member of that and I'm planning on continuing it throughout the rest of high school. And some of the things that we've been working on is having equity and inclusion nights at our school. So we had Veronica Benjamin from Contra Costa County come speak with us at these events. And yeah, I do a lot of work with this program that I founded called Meaningful Teens, where we tutor underserved and underprivileged students in Oakland. So from like Achieve Academy, which is in Fruitvale. We have over 1,000 volunteers now and over, I think, 500 students. So I have a lot of experience working with diverse children. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Aria. I would say that before we knew you were going to be able to join us and that this would work out to have you speak at 3, I read a portion of what you submitted and the work that you've done is very impressive for anyone of any age and especially for someone of your age. So congratulations on all your work.
No, it's been really fun working with kids.
It's great to see your commitment towards racial justice. So I will now ask if there's any member of the oversight body that would like to ask any follow-up questions of Aria. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. All right, thank you, Aria. We're gonna now move to a discussion on seat 9, which is for a representative of either a school-age young person or from a community-based organization who provides services to school-aged youth. And I have a list of individuals who I believed had applied under this seat, and other folks on the oversight body could let me know if I've missed anyone. I had Carlos Fernandez, Yanni Garcia, Margaret Nunez, Aria Capelli, and Pablo Martinez. We should discuss Tavon Payne, who I understand applied under this seat, but I don't know if Tavon, although an applicant with really great experience, would qualify as from a community-based organization who provides services to school-age youth. And for all of your information, Jackie Ajawa has withdrawn their application. So I'll open it up for discussion, maybe just first on the list of individuals who oversight body members believe are qualified for these seats for us to have a discussion about. So any thoughts from oversight body members? I see Jeff and Cheryl.
Let's go to Cheryl first. I'm always talking.
Cheryl.
Seems like we tag team, Jeff. It wasn't planned. It wasn't planned. Let me just say that when we came up with these descriptions of who should be on the oversight body, I was there, Jeff was there. I think Ms. Jill mentioned earlier that she was there. And there's a lot of really qualified, very strong community members here who would do very well on the oversight body. This particular seat was supposed to be someone who's not just a youth or not just someone who is in the community as a youth, but it was intended for someone who's been impacted by the system, who's been oppressed by the system, who's been in the system. It was very important to those of us who was working on the task force, those of us who came from the Racial Justice Coalition, who was really advocating for this position. There was a deep connection to the work that we've been doing and that we maintain that work. And so my preference is not just from a we have a lot of people who can speak from an empathetic level, but somebody who's been deep in the struggle, who has been deep in the system, who's been harmed by the system and oppressed by the system and impacted by the system, and who is working to alleviate those issues that the criminal punishment system has done, has a very unique perspective, you guys. And they look from a different lens. So and when I heard him speaking after reading his paperwork, I believe that this young man has the kind of thing that we have been asking for on the community engagement. We've been asking for on diversion, and we've been asking for it without even having to say it in all of the data on the data subcommittee. And so Carlos is spelling out how we can outreach and bring more youth to be involved in the work that we do. And so there's where I lean, because that is the work that we keep trying to figure out how we can reach out to more young people, because he speaks the language, because he knows it. Those lived experiences have to count for something. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jeff?
Thanks, Ellen. Yes, I was going to say some similar sentiments to what Cheryl had, and just also add that I've had some interaction overlap with Carlos and his work and rolling out youth survey and what it took to get responses from different young people in the county. So just that's showing not just significant life experience, but a real dedication to the grind that it takes to do the actual work. So I've seen how seriously Carlos takes his advocacy also. So I was going to say that, as well as my appreciation for everyone else who's put in their applications. I think that just takes worth mentioning, that putting in the application and the time of all that, and everyone's responses have been very impressive, but I was going to raise up Carlos's application also.
Thank you, Jeff. And I agree, a very robust group. So we're lucky to be in the situation to be having a discussion. Melvin?
Yeah, afternoon. And, to sort of echo those two, but also want to bring to just the light that, Carlos is serving on the JJCC. And so having a different sort of perspective to the R job, where we're going to get, sort of his expertise and everything off the JJCC, and trying to just create a more, really bringing in fresh ideas, new energy to sort of address all of it. Because one of the things that I've noticed on a lot of the subcommittees that we all are in the same space is you get to a point to where you start feeling burned out, and you just want to have sort of that new energy, new perspective that, that is coming in. And so for probation department, as much as, we support Carlos and supported him on the JJCC, we really were impressed with Aria and would be supporting, her.
Thank you, Melvin. Just scrolling, looking for any other hands. Any other members? Oh, Melissa.
Thank you. I agree with what's been said on both accounts. I think Carlos has a great perspective based on his experience that would be very interesting and a great resource for this group. But I'm also torn because, first of all, I'm very impressed with Aria and just her willingness to put in for this position. Her both written and verbal articulation is quite impressive. And the one thing I do think she brings is just the perspective of a young person that I think is really needed in this oversight body as well. So although I'm kind of torn between both, I do agree with Melvin. I'm leaning towards, or my support would go to Aria to participate in this board or this body.
Thank you, Melissa. Other thoughts from oversight body members? And Christopher puts in the chat, there'll be another chance for applicants at the end of the year. And that's a great reminder. And there are lots of different types of seats on this oversight body. So to the extent maybe there wasn't a perfect fit for some of the applicants in some of the seats today, we would really encourage folks to stay engaged and to consider submitting, because we do often have vacancies that we're looking to fill with engaged people that are passionate about this kind of systems change work. Cheryl, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what I said before. I get that. And I think that Aria is fantastic. I think she has a spot and a place. But I'm going to go back to what I said before. This particular body, and I think it may be helpful that if we go back and read maybe why that position was put there. There were two of them for juveniles and for young people. And there was a specific reason why we chose young people. And I think Aria is fantastic, especially when I read what she wrote. But I will say this, it was actually something my daughter said to me, my own young person said to me. There's some people who are going to have lots of doors open to them, and my daughter was one of them, and able to get lots of opportunities. And there's other people who will not. And so we have an obligation to look out for those who will not have these kind of opportunities open to them, and to have their voices uplifted and the voices of other people like them uplifted and have their stories told, which is why I'm pushing for someone like Carlos, who has said and done the work, who's been through the experience, who has the lived experiences, not the book, not the hopes, not the looking at it from this other side, but actually been on both sides and is doing the work in the community to try and change things. We cannot say one thing in our meetings and then come in here and we have an opportunity to uplift the work of a young man who's uplifting other young people. And we keep trying to get young people into the fold of this work, and not just any young people, these young people who are either affected or will be affected by this criminal legal system and this criminal punishment system. There are lots of people, like my children even, who get to have a life of privilege. But the ones who do not have this life of privilege, the ones who do not get this excellent education and have all of the things afforded to them, are the ones who we are most concerned about. So yes, I think it's great that we have such great applicants. As Ms. Ellen said, we have a great situation here. We have a great situation here. But this choice, if we look at the description of this position, it's supposed to be for that kind of person that Carlos represents, and somebody who is impacted and where the lived experience is to influence what we're talking about. We make informed decisions based on that, is why I was fighting for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And I will just say, I think we're in one of those situations where there are so many good choices, but from where I sit, to have someone who's been personally impacted and incarcerated in the institutions we're trying to change, and prosecuted by the prosecutor's office that's sitting here, maybe defended by the public defender's office, has had contact maybe with the probation department, and can bring a lived experience, as he said when he applied it in his application, I think is something that would bring a lot to the oversight body. So I would love to see both Aria and Carlos as part of the oversight body. But I think looking at the kind of insight we need to really do this deeper systems change work, I think Carlos would be a great asset. So does anyone else want to be heard, or does anyone have a motion? Oh, and I see, Yanni, I see your hand, and I think that will be in just a minute for public comment.
But I'll make a motion if we have no more comments from our group.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I move that we recommend Carlos, what's Carlos' last name? I don't have his last name.
Carlos Fernandez.
Carlos Fernandez, for the to fill the vacancy of the community member number 9.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Cheryl, second by Jeff, and I will take public comment. And I saw, Yanni, your hand was up, so we can start with you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that, I'm honored that you all gave me the time and space to hear me out. But I also, as I was listening to the meeting and looking who were the other applicants were, I agree that Carlos is the best person to join this board. I would pull my application and absolutely support him. Someone that's been in the struggle has a different perspective. None of the people on this board that I see, with some of you, don't really have that perspective of living in the streets, getting caught up into these systems that don't work for us, that never have. And his unique perspective is definitely needed in this space. I see it and I feel it, and I hope you all will make the right choice to recommend him for the seat. And if, I do plan on in the future, applying again, because the work needs to continue. And I just wanted to uplift Carlos and his work, because I've seen it, I've witnessed it, and I believe in second chances, and he's definitely the one for this job.
Thank you, Yanni. Jackie?
Yes, thank you. I also wanted to add to that. It appears to me that the experience, the lived experiences, can give a really unique perspective from Carlos Fernandez. And also for me, being a mother of a sophomore in high school, who I would say is pretty active, Aria is particularly impressive, not just for your age, I can see you smiling, but also just as an adult. And so, you're in sophomore year, and as seats open up later in the year, maybe we can get that unique perspective. My 16-year-old just registered to vote. I was out of the country. I came back yesterday. And she said, I registered to vote yesterday, even though I'm still 16. And I believe that the future of this country is dependent on our youth, particularly that age that's in the teens to the 20s, 30s. And right now we have very elderly people who may not be around for another 10 years deciding what our country is going to be and how it's going to get done. So Aria, kudos to you. And let's really try to make sure that we can get the perspective of a youth on this committee at some juncture in the future. Thank you.
Thanks for your input, Jackie. Appreciate it. All right, I am looking to see if I've missed anyone in public comment. Margaret, hi.
Hi, thank you. So I'm so glad that I was part of this process to witness all of this, and I'm inspired to continue my work to encourage young people to lift their voice and to be involved. And as a result of the day, at least some of that is happening. And I'm excited about this. And I can't wait to tell my student social justice activists about the opportunities and that they will make a difference. They are all with purpose, they matter, and they're gonna be leaders. So thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you. All right, thank you everyone for your public comments. Those were nice comments. Can we now take a vote, please, Nicole?
Melissa?
I'm gonna vote no. My vote is for Aria, if that were a motion.
Isa?
Likewise, I'm gonna vote no. My vote was for Aria as well.
Ellen?
I'm gonna vote yes.
C.A. Becton?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Tamisha? Did we lose Tamisha? I will circle back with Tamisha. Jeff?
Yes.
Shayla?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes. Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. Yes.
Renelle?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Again, thank you to all of the applicants, and please keep your eyes open for other opportunities and keep those applications coming. So now we're going to move on to our second to last agenda item, which is to receive reports from 3 subcommittees. First, we're going to have a report from the Community Engagement and Funding Subcommittee by Jeff Landau.
Hi, everyone. I know we're already almost at marathon status here, so I'll try to move through swiftly the materials and just would highlight that we did have our community forum on system data, and that was since the time of our last quarterly meeting. My short summary of it is that we had really robust conversation, albeit maybe not as many folks as we had hoped initially. I would say it was in the ballpark of 30, but I was looking to see how many were actually on the call at any given time. I'll say that Shayla and Renelle, as our facilitators, did a terrific job, and Dante Clark did end up was our lead, introduced the evening and did a reading, and I think that just set the tone in a way that was really productive. Also, if there were going to be perhaps 2 takeaway issues that we were hearing from people participating, first, more data, that where are some of the things that we would be expecting to seeing and aren't yet seeing. either how is that making its way onto the website, or where else is this being captured? So clearly the presentation we had today is going to be relevant for that. And then the other was what's going on with Sheriff Oversight. So those are further responses, input that we're receiving as we are having that moment for the opportunity for sharing and the feedback. So I think that that gives us reasons to, as our subcommittee, be moving in those areas and making sure that we're still making progress on those fronts. And I'll note that we made some development to our work plan, trying to prioritize what are the areas that we think are most realistic for us to, in the short term, be moving forward. And I think we're going to be putting a good bulk of our effort into the Youth Advisory Council. The Community Capacity Fund remains an important project, and it's presenting in the short term some real challenges in terms of the technical bandwidth that we have to move that forward. So we're going to be, I think, putting a good bulk of our energy and effort with the Youth Advisory Council and collaborating with JJCC in that. So I'm inclined to move to the next subcommittee and invite if anyone has questions or feedback on this short report.
Thank you, Jeff. I think to move things along, I'll take all three reports and then I'll take any comments or questions from the oversight body, and then we'll take public comment. Thank you so much. And so Becky has a report from the data subcommittee.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having us here today to talk about the work we've been doing in our subcommittee, the data subcommittee. Like Jeff said, I'll try to keep it brief. Everything is there in the report, but I do want to hit on a few key highlights, especially because there are some people here who are new. So we have a couple key projects we've been working on. And just like Jeff was saying for his committee, in our committee, we also have been working to update our work plan. And so we added a column to the original work plan for our subcommittee and added some more information, which is on page, I believe, is it really 128? Begins on page 128 of the packet. And in the work plan update, we added a column. Thank you, whoever's controlling that, Nicole, probably, for moving to there. To show the progress that we've made in each of the different areas as of March 2022. And so that was a helpful activity that we went through as a group, kind of talking about each of the different objectives and where we were at, and just building on the work that Chris had done to put together the accomplishments that we've done so far as a group. So that's there for your review, and we're happy to answer any questions about that when we get to the question time. But some other things I want to update about in particular is the project that we've been working around, the policing the teen brain, which is an adolescent cognitive development training, which will be targeted towards police LEAs. And so we have successfully submitted a request for the federal community project funding to the Board of Supervisors and received support from our Congress people, and submitted some additional letters of support from different agencies represented on the data report there. And so we're really excited about that project, thinking that if that happens, that will have a really large impact on policing in our county. That project has happened in other counties and other states, and has had a real impact on the disparities that we know are so prevalent, especially within our teens and young people and Tay youth here in Contra Costa. And just for people who might be joining us for the first time, in Contra Costa, we do have a larger disparity amongst the incarceration of youth than we do amongst our adult population. And so that is part of why the data supported us in that particular objective of providing training. And what we've asked for is a pretty substantial budget to cover training all of the police LEAs within the county. And it's a very intensive process where they go through and work with each of the LEAs and look at their data and really customize it. It's not like a cookie cutter. So that's one thing that we have going on. The other thing is that I just wanted to touch on something also that Jeff said about the data that is presented on the website. And we do have some updates. It seems to be that we have our meeting, like the one on 4/28 was last Thursday, which is actually after the docket for this is due. And so we're always in this position of trying to like capture something that hasn't happened yet. So we did have that meeting last Thursday, and Denise from Patrice's ORJ office brought forward some new, just improved versions of the data that we do have published on the website currently. And 2 additions to that is adding some key takeaways in each of the different sections. And so that, so for all of them, it's not just presenting the data, but having some key takeaways that are on each sheet of that. And that is actually not included here, but we will be including that, replacing what is on the website with that. So it's the same data that's been presented with perhaps some more additional detail. I'm not sure, I can't remember if that detail reports are on there or not. Maybe somebody else on the committee remembers, but we have both the overarching data that we shared and that was used at the community forum, as well as more detailed reports looking at race and ethnicity, breaking it down by a different sort of the different causes of the different sorts of felonies and misdemeanors. So that information will be replaced on the website with the more updated version. And then just wanting to kind of bring back around something that we brought last time we had the quarterly meeting, which is that just trying to get clarity about where the data will be residing, because we did have some active data requests for different organizations, but we've put a pause on this at this time because we can't actually create a data release with the different police LEAs unless we know who will be receiving and handling that data. And so it is critical for us to get some direction from this body about how we should be formulating those requests of the LEAs so that we can move forward. Because we were hoping to follow up on the presentation that was given to the mayor's conference with something that would make it easy for people to say yes. So we were hoping to draft a release of information, but at this time we don't feel that we can move forward because we don't know exactly what we're asking them to release particularly. So that is something that we need direction from this body about. And then we also did hear information about the community data forum from our subcommittee members who were present, and looked at our regular data that we look at quarterly. And we have also created what is in the packet is our, starting on page 130, is our yearly summary. So we look at data quarterly, and then we decided that since we've been doing this now for I think over 3 years, is that right? I think, or approaching 3 years, it's been a while, that we should really start to make more of a digest look of it, because it's hard to look at multiple quarters over time. So ORJ did prepare this documentation, which is in here, which is a summary digest of this year's quarters. So putting all 4 quarters together. And because the number of juveniles that are incarcerated in our county is small, it is very helpful actually to look at it this way, because it is a larger group to look at. So you can see the patterns more over time. So this will also help us in our work over time as we can compare year to year. So that's what's included in the packet, in the pages, the attachments between page 130 and page 136. So those are the updates that are in there. And like Ellen said, we'll hear some questions at the end. So we'll pass it back to you, Ellen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that update. And then finally, we have an update on the diversion subcommittee from Stephanie Medley.
Thanks, Ellen. So in the diversion committee, we took some time to review our work plan and really just focus on, look at, what we've accomplished, because I think sometimes we forget that we have made some accomplishments, and also just to review some of the things that we raised as issues or concerns that we want to make sure that we were looking at. So one of the things that I think has come up also in other committees is around how we're impacting young people or supporting young people even before they get into the system. And so in our Objective 5, it was really looking at what's happening in the schools, what does the school to prison pipeline look like, and how can we make some shifts in what that looks like. And so, that's come up in the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council, it's come up with the Racial Justice Oversight Body, And then we also have the county team, that was the Georgetown team that was looking at reducing racial and ethnic disparities. And so we really wanted to make sure that that was one of the focuses for us as we move forward. We had a presentation by LaShante Smith, who is in West County, the West County School District, and is also part of the Georgetown team that was looking at reducing racial and ethnic disparities and our project around schools. And so the hope as we move forward is that we get a better understanding of what's happening in some of the other districts in the county. Also, I know in the JJCC report, there were particular districts that came up that it seems like more of the young people at those districts are going into Mount McKinley, which is the facilities school. So we really want to take a look at that and see where there's some ways that we can make some inroads into what are some of those specific programs that are happening at the schools. Also, we've been looking at diversion eligibility criteria and how can we kind of create some kind of key criteria that we're looking at for diversion for adults and for young people. And so we have a separate committee that has been working on that. And we're really using the Coco Lead Plus as a template to develop that criteria, expand on it, and hopefully by our next meeting, we'll have something that we can share with you on that. And I think that's it.
Great, thank you so much for presenting. And so now I will ask if there are any members of the Racial Justice Oversight Body that have questions for either Jeff, Rebecca, or Stephanie about the subcommittee presentations. Not seeing any hands. Any questions? All right, well, thank you all for the updates and for all the good work that's happening on a monthly basis in all three of our subcommittees. So I will also ask if there's any public comment on or questions on the reports from the subcommittees. Looking for hands. Oh, I see Jeff's hand. I'm sorry if I missed you before, Jeff.
You didn't, Ellen. I was late. I was just thinking about, you know, the way to respond to Rebecca, as you were saying, that there are places that need to have guidance or some follow-up from this bigger group. So I guess it's just kind of seeing how we can, if this is the time to try to iron out, well, where will the data be held in the short term if we're going to be making those requests? So I just know that was part of the data subcommittee report, is saying we need some direction here. So I'm just kind of responding to that and seeing if there is either from ORJ or otherwise some indication of, well, what can we do to obtain data in the short term until there's a longer term place that would be holding.
And forgive me because I was kind of doing some double work here, but if I'm understanding your question correctly, you were asking what do we do in terms of data collection in the meantime?
That's what I was understanding it from Rebecca, basically that if there were going to be an ask to law enforcement agency, please provide the info, where can they send it? Am I understanding that right, Rebecca? That's kind of like the current.
Yeah, we were trying to facilitate the completion of the ask that we started, if that makes sense, but we can't have a blank MOU that says, I agree to share my data with whoever you want, right? We have to name who's going to hold that data. And so that is what we're looking for, is direction from this group about what that should be. And I'm not really sure whether I mean, I think that maybe that has to be agendized for a future meeting. I don't know if that's something that can be discussed here if it wasn't agendized, but I don't know if Jill's still here. She's our parliamentarian to comment on that. But I just think that we don't want to like ask people to agree like in the concept. We want to actually get to like the actual release of the data. And in order to do that, we have to name the body that's going to hold it. Because it's confidential data, right? It includes a lot of things that no police LEA would feel comfortable or should feel comfortable to say, I'm going to sign this over without knowing who it's going to be handed to.
Can I just throw out maybe it would go to ORJ in the short term? That just
so we've already, I mean, Patrice is here and she can speak for herself, but you know, we've already talked about that, but that's actually not appropriate because they are probation, they're part of probation at this point. And so for probation to hold all the individual police LEA's records is not the plan.
And to answer your question, Becky, it's part of your report, therefore it's on the agenda.
Thank you, Jill. Always count on you for advice about these things. Patrice, did you want to add? I didn't want to speak for you, but I just want to.
No, you clarified it perfectly. Thank you.
Do any other oversight body members have ideas about data storage or questions for any of the presenters? Stephanie.
I have no idea if this would work, and I know they're still trying to, they're still kind of developing the ORESJ. I think that's it. I may have missed a letter, but the Office of Racial Equity and Justice, I'm still missing a letter, but that could potentially be maybe a place to house the information.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think, I imagine the answer to that would be that might be an eventual place, but I would guess there's probably more of a short-term question as we're trying to move the work forward at the same time that the process to get the ORESJ, I think I got all the letters, up and running goes forward. And I see a hand from Jill as well.
I'm happy to talk, or I'm happy to wait if you have other members who are wanting to talk.
I don't think we have other, are there any, well, I'll formally ask, any other oversight body members have a comment or anything they'd like to discuss about this? Okay, no hand, so.
Okay,
Jill.
so yes. So the problem is exactly as you said, Ellen, it's an interim because we do not know when the Office of Racial Equity and Social, it's S, Stephanie, Justice is going to be lifted. I don't know where that process is at this point in time. The question is, you know, don't want the work of this body to be stalled and in waiting mode. The idea is to keep moving forward. The data, as everybody knows, is imperative to kind of put the whole puzzle together, understanding in different aspects of the system. So I guess what Becky and her group might be asking is for the Racial Justice Oversight Body maybe to make a motion to request of the Board of Supervisors, which is you make recommendations to them to identify some place that can take and evaluate this data in the interim.
Thank you, Jill. That does sound like a good next step for this group to get some direction on what our interim options are for storage and retention of the data during this current period. Is there any other public comment on this item? Okay, I do not see any hands. So we will move forward and get a, I think, relatively brief update on item 7, which is PPC updates and discussion on future items for the PPC, which is the Public Protection Committee, and the Board of Supervisors. So Paul Reyes, if he is here, if he's still here, from the County Administrator's Office, was going to give this update to our body.
So actually, Ellen, he did jump off. He had to go to another meeting, but he did send over a brief write-up and asked that I share this with you all. So bear with me as I pull it all together, and we'll try to make this really quick. During the February PPC meeting, as Chris provided an overview of our jobs work to date, the action that was taken by our job was also presented to the PPC members. And from that discussion, they then directed staff to return to PPC with some additional information about whether or not, about the Board of Supervisors authority over the Sheriff's Office to serve as the actual oversight entity. At the April PPC meeting, it was brought back, and they discussed Government Code Section 25303, which sets forth the authority of the Board of Supervisors over county officials, and Government Code Section 25303.7, which was added by AB 1185 to authorize County Board of Supervisors to establish a sheriff oversight body. The PPC then noted that per the Government Code of 25303.7, such a body would, in quotes, assist the Board of Supervisors in its duties required pursuant to Section 25303 that relate to the sheriff. And after they received the update from the County Administrator's Office about working with the Sheriff's Office to set the parameters for a regular quarterly oversight reports to the PPC, which would provide an update on the activities of the Sheriff's Office and allow for questions and discussion on operational issues. Staff will be returning back to PPC on May 23rd to present what those parameters of the oversight report would be, and what additional information on what other neighboring counties have been doing in regards to developing a sheriff oversight board. In reference to the other portion of the agenda item with regards to joint communications between our job and PPC, CAO is requesting that we at ORJ can take at least receive any of the items that you all would like to bring forward to the PPC, and then we schedule them in a timely manner in partnership with the CAO. And that's all.
Thanks for that update, Patrice. I see one hand up. Rebecca?
I'm sorry, I just want to circle back to what Jill had said and what we were at, because she had said that we could make a motion. So I would like to make a motion. I know this meeting is about to be over, but I don't want to wait another 4 months. Make a motion that we seek guidance from the Board of Supervisors surrounding the interim solution for data housing.
Okay. Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a second, and I will ask for any discussion from any our job member first. All right, and I will take any public comment now. Scrolling for hands. All right, Nicole, can you take our vote, please?
Yeah, Melissa?
Yes.
Isa?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Back then it's gone. Lynn, and Lynn is also.
Lynn is off, so I'm her proxy.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Tamisha. Jeff?
Yes.
Shayla?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Ronell?
Yes.
Cheryl? Cheryl, I didn't hear you if you had voted yes or no. Tamisha, can I come back to you? Is it a yes or no? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all. And thank you
much.
Becky, for tying that up so that we can move forward on that piece. And that is the end of our agenda. Thank you all for a action-packed meeting, and we'll see one another at the next meeting in August or at a subcommittee meeting before then. Thanks again to all of our passionate, wonderful applicants. We hope to see you all again.